reminder. We have found that if a person comes in here and uses their device to do Zoom, it dismantles everything, and that's why we've been having trouble. So if you, I'm just letting you know, we really would prefer you not use your devices here because it causes problems for us. So I appreciate that. So, and we have a special guest here this evening. It's Steve Page, and I'd like to know if you would lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Page. Or you can say no. Just the ear's fine.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Page. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dean.
Here.
Councilmember Barnett.
Here.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. Public participation using Zoom. I explained our issues here briefly. Members of the public who are present in the chambers will comment first, and those attending on Zoom will comment. Note that no one inside the council chambers can be logged into Zoom. I just shared that with you. So at this point, we're going into public comment. And is there anybody? Is it Zoom first?
We have to approve the agenda.
Oh, that's right. So sorry. At this point, approval of agenda. There it is. And so, is there anyone who would like to do that? Roll call.
I would like to move to approve the agenda.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dean.
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The
Thank
motion
you
carries
all.
unanimously.
And let me see. Comments from the public. At this time, the members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for the council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone, beginning by stating and spelling your name. Members of the public present in the chambers will be called first, and then those who are attending via Zoom will be called. Thank you.
With your permission, my glasses fog. I'll speak down so I'm reading. My name is Richard Silver. I live at 95 Bernhardt Avenue in the Springs.
Well, Mr. Silver, I'm sorry. Everybody's doing it, so I'm sorry. You'll have to put your mask back on.
My ass? My mask.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Can I be heard clearly? Fine.
Yes.
The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, quote, outlaws every contract, combination, or conspiracy and restraint of trade. The Supreme Court has decided that the Sherman Act does not prohibit every restraint of trade, only those that are unreasonable. But the City Council was requested by the owner of the single monopoly in Sonoma cannabis, Spark, that the city prohibit the issuance for a year so that he could determine whether or not his business was profitable. Is not only reprehensible, it's unethical. Should the City Council acquiesce to his demands, you may well be in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act for depriving individuals from access to purchase a variety of medical and recreational cannabis at competitive pricing. The Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914 cites impermissible activities, exclusive dealing arrangements, mergers and acquisitions that substantially reduce market competition. The Robinson-Packman Act of 1936 prescribes certain anti-competitive practices where manufacturers engage in price discrimination. The California Political Reform Act provides in great detail how public officials, designated employees, must conduct themselves when confronted with a decision potentially affecting his or her financial interests. California courts also ruled that public officials must always act without personal interest and for the benefit of the public, regardless of whether there are any specific financial interests at stake. Therefore, pursuant to the California Political Reform Act, I am formally requesting that Mayor Agrimonti recuse herself from discussing or voting on any issues pertaining to the issuance of permits for a second dispensary. Many people say that, sadly, Mayor Agrimonti has a family member who has drug issues which have clouded her judgments. This is a personal interest, and therefore she is not acting in the public best interest. Madam, recuse yourself from discussions related to cannabis in any way, shape, or form, particularly permitting a second dispensary. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to get up and comment here this evening? Seeing no one, I think I'll close the public comment here, and then you will
Madam Mayor, if you'd like to say into the mic that Zoom public comment is open, just to be, so if
All
anybody-
right, thank you. Zoom public comment is open. I invite you all who are waiting with your comments on Zoom to wait to be invited in.
No one is raising their hand, Madam Mayor.
Oh. All right, thank you. Presentations this evening, no dedications. I don't have any. Does anyone have any dedications? Jack, do you? Okay.
I request Mayor Agrimonti dedicated our meeting to Joseph Willing Byrne. Joseph Willing Byrne passed away August 26, 2021, after suffering pulmonary embolism and massive stroke. He was 82. He is survived by his devoted and loving wife, Mary Lynch, his daughter, Marianne, Mimi Richardson, and Aaron Byrne, grandchildren, Clint and Corinne Richard. His man, best friend, Alfred, and many nieces, nephews, and cousins. Mr. Byrne had a rewarding career as a mechanical contractor until his retirement. When he developed his fishing and camping hobbies, he was a loving father and grandfather. He raised his daughters in San Francisco and Sonoma and made sure they were educated, taught, and be kind, and they were all, and his grandkids saw island. He was lovely father and grandfather, great friends. Our community will greatly miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Ding. Are there any presentations this evening, City Manager? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council or staff request specific items to be removed for separate action. And I would like to yield to our city manager. As you explained to us, we've sort of had a practice of pooling an item if there's when we have a comment. So could you share that with us? We learned that in a read-to-read.
Yeah, I think what I was saying is if you have just a general comment on the consent calendar item, you don't need to pull it. You can just make that comment before you take your public comment.
Okay,
Or after, just depends.
all right. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to comment on any of these items?
I would like to put agenda 4.3 out.
All right.
And I would like to pull 4.6 and 4.7.
Okay. All right. Mr. Felder, do you have anything you'd like to pull? Okay.
Been done.
Then we will move to approve the remaining list. Is that what we're doing, or we can pass it over?
Oh, you just need public comment on the remaining items.
All right. Okay, so the council has shared what they'd like to do. I'll move this out to the public comments. Do we have any regarding our consent calendar from the audience?
Thank you. Steve Page, 1219 Apple Tree Court, Sonoma. I just wanted to comment briefly on item 4.2 regarding Measure F. We appreciate the council and the city manager adding this to the agenda. As I think all of you are aware, we are very blessed to live in this valley, and one of the things that is unique in a town this size is that we have a full-service hospital and an emergency room that is available to us for routine health care for emergencies. And the economics of a small-town hospital are very challenging, and particularly in a community like this, where the majority of the income for the hospital is based on Medicare and other third-party providers who compensate at a level that's less than the cost of providing the service. So in order to bridge the revenue gap, 20 years ago, the citizens of the district voted to impose a parcel tax, which has kept the hospital open, and the hospital is thriving and going in a good direction. Measure F on the ballot in November will extend that tax for 10 years. The tax will remain at the same level, and it'll provide a subsidy that will allow us to continue to enjoy the benefit of having a full-service hospital, an emergency room in the town of Sonoma. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Page. Anyone else would like to speak on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment section for the consent agenda, and I think we actually have had a request to pull 4.3. Is there something, is that, Kelso, is that what you pulled? You pulled it, okay.
Should we make a motion to approve the consent calendar? Yeah.
Okay, the other one, all right, sorry. So at this point, why don't we, I think what we've got left is 4.1.
Well, may I make a motion? Okay, I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar except for 4.3, 4.6, and 4.7.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I'll second.
And could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries
Thank
unanimously.
you. And now we'll go back to our questions from the city council. May I start with you?
Well, let's do 4.3 first
okay.
with, yeah.
Yeah, 4.3, these kind of priorities, we listed in the 9 based on our discussion, the last, our city council retreat meeting last Friday. And then basically, we all agree with those 9 points. Basically, that is our common points we can share each other with our city council. I would like to add another one that is so-called how to preserve our small towns, the history, and maintain our small towns and historical buildings and those kind of the fundings and also could be and consider in the future our agenda. This afternoon, I got a phone call from the Patricia Cullinan. She encouraged me putting this item for our list of our priority for the year 2021 to 2022. I fully support it.
Thank you.
And-
4.6, what would you like?
Well,
to
just
comment?
on this item, on 4.3, I totally support the Vice Mayor on that. I think historic preservation in Sonoma is very important. Obviously, this is one of the most historic cities in the state of California, and specifically, hopefully one of these goals could be creating a historic resource inventory to map out the entire city and determine what is historic, what is not, and creating that list. Also creating historic districts, a lot of that work I think is already in process. Obviously this is important not just for our historic heritage, but also, from what I understand, new state housing laws doesn't apply to historic elements, and so it's sort of, in my view, a twofer. And so I would support adding this to our council goals for 2021, 2022.
Thank you. And I also, would you like to weigh in, Bob?
I'll support it as well, I agree.
Yeah, I support this also. Over the years that I've been here on the city council, I've encouraged the Visitors Bureau to make it that the history of Sonoma should be at the table with events. And it seems to always be off the table. And I think we need to, this might bring it back to where it belongs. Because as you shared, that it is a very important city in the state of California. And if the people that are closest to the issue need to support this, and I think we need to bring it to everyone's attention. So thank you for that.
And just to add, I think it's an appropriate time to focus on that as we, in 2023, will be celebrating or commemorating the 200th anniversary of the founding of the mission and the, I guess you could say, the settlement of the western settlement of Sonoma. So,
Thank you. And I think also 4.6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sure, give public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, maybe
Yeah.
is one point of clarification?
Yes.
Are you saying the goal would be something like preserve small town character by updating list of historic inventory resources and explore historic districts designation? And explore historic district designations, or something
yeah,
like that?
with the creation of historic, yeah.
Okay.
And
Yes.
checking out our historical buildings,
What was I'm sorry, what was the last part?
historical buildings.
Oh, historical building. Okay, is that the historic inventory, is that the inventory of historic resources?
Yes.
Buildings.
Buildings, okay. So updating inventory of historical resources.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So
There's
how
a
about
term
this?
for it, like a historic resource survey, I think. Yeah.
Right.
Or
Cultural resources? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have preserve small town character by updating a list of cultural resources and explore creation of historic district designations.
Yes.
Okay. Does that work? Okay.
Thank you. And I think we are now to 4.6.
And then I'm sorry, then public comment, and then you have to take action on this
Oh,
item
all right.
separate.
Public comment on the one we've just discussed, 4.3, okay? I'll open for public comment. I'm not seeing anyone rise. I'll bring it back to 4.3 and move on. And Zoom. Do you have anyone for 4.3 for Zoom? No, I see no one. So I'm going on to 4.6. Oh, move to approve. If I have a motion.
Yeah, we just, you repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Garrett, could you please repeat and then we can? Sure. Yeah.
Yes. I guess to make clear, you would just make a motion approving those goals, adding this goal, which is preserve small-time character by updating the list of cultural resources and explore the creation of historic district designations.
Yes. I move it for an approve.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
And I think there was also someone pulled 4.7?
6.
6.
So I pulled 4.6, and I had a question for city staff on this. Was there any thought given about storing these pieces of art and then bringing them back out in March when these, we had this long discussion about the heads in front of City Hall. And I was a little reluctant, but we decided to go ahead and approve it. And now they're asking to extend it for another, so October to March, that would be another 6 months. And I understand their desire to keep the heads during a, what's it called? There's like a ceramic, there's some conference up in Sacramento. And so I understand that they would like to be able to bring people from that conference to celebrate Sonoma's cultural artistic heritage, which I totally support. I'm just curious if we could just sort of bring them back out.
Lisa? So I think Lisa can help answer that via Zoom.
Hi, Councilmember Barnett. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Lisa, yes. I can hear
Yes,
you. I think we all can.
Sorry, we actually have Linda Keaton and Charlotte Hare from the Community Center on the call right now. No, that was not something that was discussed. The specific request was to keep them out in their current locations. I do know that, to remove the artwork entails work and extra expense. And so I'm going to make the assumption that the thought was it would reduce the necessary cost to install again, remove and install again. And so that's why the request was structured the way it was. But I will defer to Linda Keaton or Charlotte Hare on whether or not that's an option.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Hi. Yeah, that would not be an option because obviously the expense would be doubled. The city was generous enough to help us with the rental of the steel plates for the run of the exhibition, and for the next 6 months, the community center and Sonoma Valley Museum of Art are willing to. We would cover the fine art insurance, which we do anyway, and also the rental of the steel plates. We'd be splitting the cost between the two organizations. But to remove those, storage, and to bring them back out, reinstall them, would not be in our budget, and it also would not be good for these heads to keep moving them around. They are ceramic and they are fine art, and we try to move them as little as possible. So we're requesting that they stay in place.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, you might want to, or we just want to make sure that they can hear, because you didn't have your mic on, that Zoom for public comment is open.
Okay, so the public comment is open at this point. Is there anyone out there who would like to comment?
Charlotte Hager,
Wasn't she just on?
Linda Keaton.
Oh,
Can you all hear me?
yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Charlotte Hager. I'm the Executive Director at the Sonoma Community Center. I just wanted to make a comment firstly to express my gratitude to the City Council and the City staff for approving the current public art exhibition on the plaza a few months back. I think it's added tremendous value to both the visitor and resident experience of the plaza. I know it's invited lots of wonderful conversation this past summer about the value of public art, creativity, and expression. And then tonight, I also just wanted to speak out in support of this request to extend the exhibition of June Kaneko's heads. As mentioned, the annual conference of the National Council on Education for the Ceramic Arts, or NCECA, will take place from March 16 to 19 in Sacramento. And having these heads available on the plaza would be a really wonderful and, we believe, powerful means to draw conference goers to Sonoma. Local arts organizations, which include the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art and the Community Center, are already working to develop programming that'll coincide with the conference, and we are convinced that if the June Kaneko heads were still on display here on the plaza, a visit to Sonoma would become absolutely irresistible to conference goers and other visitors. We feel that extending this exhibition would probably draw a large nationwide crowd of arts-focused visitors to Sonoma next March, which I think, wouldn't just help put Sonoma on the map as an arts and culture destination, in addition to already being known as a wine destination. It would also very likely result in an influx of tourism revenue for the city during an otherwise fairly slow time of year. So with that, I'll just say that the Community Center highly endorses this request, and thank you so much for your time.
Anyone else? No? All right, so at this point, let's see. I think what am I doing? Okay. I think we have shared everything there was to share about consent agenda. I think, do we need a vote now?
Well,
You're closed. Yeah, you close public comment, and then you just need a motion on
Okay,
4-6.
thanks. The ones that were pulled?
I would
Excuse
like
me.
to,
I'd like to close the public comment at this time. And who would like to propose?
Was 4-3 pulled?
that is already finished.
Okay.
we
Yeah,
added it.
We already added. Yeah.
Right, so what's the pleasure?
Yeah.
Motion.
I would
We're
like
doing
to put motion for approve, that is adopting the resolution approving request from the Sonoma Valley Museum of the Art and the Sonoma Community Center to extend the temporary art installation of Junkaniko ceramic and hats.
There's the other ones that are on this.
Well, I just provide, is there going to be a second? Does anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, and there'd be discussion. So I'm going to vote to support this, but I do want to sort of send, I think the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art is a great organization, as is the Sonoma Community Center. When we discussed this earlier in the year, I love our public art program. I just had concerns about the placement in I think it's called the historic front lawn now. And that was always a policy that we did not put art there. And obviously we made an exception this time, and now we're extending it 6 months. But moving forward, I do want to have, and perhaps, we should have probably put this on our council goals, a more holistic, thoughtful discussion about the future of public art in Sonoma and how the council can support that, but also perhaps reserve that historic lawn in the future for, I just don't know if it's appropriate to put public art in the front lawn there. And so I look forward to that continued discussion, and I just don't want the Sonoma Museum of Art or the Community Center to think that by extending this is creating a precedent where in the future we are going to always support or think it's okay to put large pieces of public art in that lawn, because in my view the best piece of public art in our city is City Hall, and it's sort of, sometimes it can complement that, sometimes it can take away from it. Obviously public art can be very subjective. For example, I think we should expand the public art program to the northern quadrants. From what I understand, they're only currently allowed in the southern quadrants, and so this is a discussion to be had with Lisa and staff moving forward. But I wanted to state for the record that moving forward, I don't think, at least I would be supportive of more public art in the front lawn after the end of this exhibition.
Thank you, and Mr. Vice Mayor, you were,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
so I think we still have, I need a motion.
Just vote. Yeah.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Yes?
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
So we have no public hearing, Mr. City
I
Manager.
think you still have item 4.7 that Councilmember Barnett had pulled, or requested to be pulled.
I'm not used to separating it like this. I think that we tried to resolve it by what you offered us. All right, 4.7, and,
So I pulled 4.7, and the 4.7 is authorizing Mayor Agrimonti to send a letter to Governor Newsom requesting that he veto SB 9, but he signed that into law last week, and so obviously the letter at this point would be moot. And so perhaps we could either pull it, or we could still send it, which I actually sort of support, knowing full well it will have no impact. And to be fair, it probably wouldn't have had impact before either. But so that's sort of why I pulled it, to see what the council wanted to do. It's completely moot at this point. So.
Yeah, I think as a suggestion as for staff, the points taken to moot, I don't think you even need to take action on this item. It won't serve a purpose to send it, but it does make a clear point that our recommendation was to recommend the veto of the bill. But the governor signed it on Friday. Yes, unfortunately on this one, yeah, you pulled it for the discussion, so you would ask for public comment, and then after that, I think you just move on.
I'll open this up for public comment on 4.7. Just not authorize me anymore, I guess, to do a letter to the governor regarding SB 9. Any comments?
Even though it's moot, I think it's an important law that should have been vetoed, and I support that you were going to send a letter. Thanks.
Thank you. And do we have any comments from Zoom? None. Okay. Well, that's it for us. That's it. Thank you. I text you something. Jeff, did you get it? Yeah. Oh God, my husband's so pissed.
So there's no action on 4.7.
No, yes, that's correct. No
Okay.
action. You didn't take any action. You didn't make a motion, so.
Okay, now on to 6.1. And I have a few things to work with here. Turn over to the planning director. 6.1.
Good evening. This item was continued. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, sorry. It doesn't sound like it's on when you're even blowing into it. So, yeah, this item was continued from your last meeting, September the 8th, where you asked staff to return with additional items. In your packet, we did that. Basically, we have a copy of the settlement and release agreement with a summary of the key points from the city attorney, his office. We provided you with the 2 RFPs that were received, one from AECOM and the second one from DUDEC. We also provided you with information relating to the February the 1st resolution and minutes. a list of the firms that received the first and the second RFPs. We provided you with communications between staff and the applicant, a draft third RFP, and the cost recovery agreement. In addition to all of those things, we provided in the packet a letter from the applicant's legal counsel that was dated September the 15th. In that letter, staff became aware of information that it was not privy to when we last met on September the 8th. Specifically, on page 3, you'll notice the first sentence talks in the plural, where we believe it was quite possible that the applicant had contacted more than one of the consulting firms about the first RFP process, other than AECOM that we reported at the last meeting. In an email a couple of days later from that letter that we received, on Friday the 17th, this was after the agenda packet had been published, DUDEC responded to our inquiry that they had also been approached by the applicant after the first RFP process as to why they had not submitted a proposal to that first RFP. And this email has been provided in the public record for your review and also for that of the public. DUDEC was the only respondent to that second RFP process, more than likely encouraged by the applicant to do so, particularly as they were talking to one another about an ability to recommend to city staff the use of a categorical exemption for the three projects. Probably the most disconcerting issue to staff is that neither the applicant or DUDEC informed city staff of these conversations, emails, and meetings, which could be characterized as inappropriate conduct during the selection of an impartial consultant. Contact without staff approval or being in attendance between consultants and applicants is not, quote, normal and customary, as you found in the letter responded to by on September the 15th by Mr. Patterson. Typically, once a firm has been retained, contact between an applicant and an environmental firm may be allowed, but must be pre-approved by the city, and for the most part, city staff attends these meetings. So based on this very recent discovery, staff is now recommending that the City Council not adopt the resolution in the staff report to retain DUDEC. Staff is hereby revising its alternative action that we've provided in the staff report, which is to seek a sole source contract with an environmental firm, specifically those that have not had any prior contact or those that did not respond to the applicant in the first place. We'll seek a proposal that we can then vet and present to the City Council for your award of a contract. Sole sourcing is a non-competitive process, and it's being recommended as we had minimal success with the first two RFPs. Now, we don't have a guesstimate as to the time on how long this process will take, but probably will take somewhere around 60 to 120 days, assuming that there are still competent firms available. So staff, this concludes staff's report at this time, and we'll await direction from our council. And I believe our city attorney has an additional update on top of that to present to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council to staff?
Well, the city attorney is.
Well,
Is
he's
that the next
staff.
part of the presentation? Oh.
Well, I will do that, yes.
Okay.
Today we received, well, let me step back for a second. We received from DUDEC, as Mr. Storer was indicating on Friday, an email from DUDEC outlining the contacts and conversations it had with Mr. Jasper and Ed Routhier. And as Mr. Storer said, they were troubling and strongly implied that Mr. Jasper was attempting to influence the consultant in terms of what the consultant should be looking for in terms of the level of environmental analysis that should be conducted for the three homes that are subject to this application. I called Mr. Jasper's lawyer, Ryan Patterson. I forwarded him that email, copies of which you all now have. And we had a rather spirited discussion. And I informed him I thought what his client did was inappropriate and showed an attempt to bias the process, and that staff was not likely going to recommend entering into the agreement with DUDEC because of that. In response, he sent a letter to me today, which I also have copied to the council now. Very unhappy with staff's change of heart and not recommending entering into the contract with DUDEC, and has imposed a series of conditions, that the new contract be solicited within 14 days, the council approve the new contract with 14 days, and that any additional costs above the DUDAC bid be more or less absorbed by the city. I've not responded. These are just lawyers talking, and we will go forward on a path that's reasonable and dictated by the conduct of Mr. Jasper and Ed Ruthier. So we will get back to you if anything changes that's significant. Right now, I don't think you need to be concerned about what Mr. Jasper's lawyer is saying or the time limits he's imposing because they're not reasonable. And this is all the making and the result of his own client. We know that, for example, the first round of RFPs only produced one response. Mr. Jasper didn't like that. He didn't like the response. So he caused a second RFP to be circulated, which caused delay and additional costs to him. These are all self-inflicted wounds. And for his lawyer to try to be passing those off to the city and imposing responsibility on the city for further delay, in my view, is unsupportable. So that's where we are. It's unfortunate. I'm certainly hoping that the well has not been poisoned too much here, that Mr. Jasper, we believe, has sent out other emails to other consultants, some of whom may have responded, others may have ignored them. But we will find that out, and we will try to make a deliberate, considered attempt to retain a high-quality CEQA and environmental consultant to bring back to you for your approval.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Walter?
I do. Does the concept of sole sourcing, does that abide by the terms of the settlement agreement, in your view?
By now it does. We were only required to solicit proposals from three. Solicit proposals from three. Not get three, but solicit proposals from three. We've now done 9, 7 of whom we did twice.
Right.
So we're way beyond that.
Okay.
We're fine.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for our city attorney or staff?
I have one.
Okay.
For the city attorney. I just would like to get a clarification. In the last meeting, you had made a statement about Mr. Jasper not being able to sue us in the future. And in your letter that came out yesterday, I believe there is some clarification of that, and I would like you to explain that to me.
Yes, the settlement is structured such that Mr. Jasper has given up his right to sue the city and the council for its ultimate decision that results from his application for these revised projects. However, that doesn't mean he then forfeits its right to reinstitute the litigation that has been pending for the last 2 years. He reserves that right. So he can't sue us anew. He just gets to restart that which is in existence now. Right now, that case stands in a very strong posture for the city. The trial court has basically found 2 times that the claims being made by Mr. Jasper are without merit, the significant claims. But they've reserved the right to appeal that. And as some of you may know, the appeal court is the First District Court of Appeal in San Francisco. And it has handed down a couple of recent decisions that are upholding the new wave of very stringent laws that tie the hands of the council and commission and design and review committees in terms of its ability to vet and review and act upon residential projects. So we are faced with some challenges ahead of us with these new laws, and we're actually setting up a joint meeting, hopefully in the near future, with the commission, DRC, and the council to have members of our firm go over some of them, so you're clearly aware of what's down the road. But at any rate, getting back to this particular case, it stands right now in abeyance. Mr. Jasper, if he's unhappy with what happens at the end of this particular process, he can reinstitute that litigation. He can't sue us anew, as I said. but he can reinstitute the litigation, and it must be based upon the council's decision of a couple years ago, not the one that might be made 5 to 10 months from now with this council on his revised applications.
That's not the way I read that item 4.B in the settlement agreement. Because it says, if the revised applications are denied in part, or approved with conditions unacceptable, the stay may be lifted and action may be revived. So that's new action by the council, not.
Now, that action is capitalized A. That refers to the existing lawsuit. The action may be revived.
Yes, but it may be revived based on our current decision on in regards to the settlement agreement and the revised applications, is it
No.
not?
You're misreading it. That was heavily negotiated.
I have a sort of a follow-up question on that. I mean, this to make a distinction. You use the term revised applications, Jeff?
Yes.
So the applications that were submitted to the city in, when did this start? 2015, 16?
Somewhere around there, yes.
So those are still, as part of this settlement agreement, live, basically. Like, these are not new. Are these new applications?
No, the ones that were submitted in 15 or 16 are alive, as you say. They still are part of that lawsuit, which has not been dismissed. It's still,
Right.
that lawsuit has just stayed, it's stopped.
So the settlement agreement is revising those original applications submitted. These are not new applications to the city. That's the point, I guess.
Yes, we don't have the revised applications yet.
Right.
We're waiting to hire the consultant, the
Right.
civil consultant. Once that happens, then Mr. Jasper presumably will be filing his revised applications that conform to the settlement agreement, which downsize those projects. Those are the significant revisions that the settlement agreement specifies.
Right.
That's why it's considered a revised application. They have yet to be filed. So the action is referencing here as being revived is the action that currently is pending, but has been stayed while we process the revised applications that we're waiting for to be filed.
And I asked that question because typically when an application is submitted and deemed complete, whatever is on the books at that time applies to that project. And so I guess maybe that's a moot point because the settlement agreement determines what parts of the code apply and what don't, or do these revised applications fall under the development code of 2016 or the development code of 2021?
I don't believe we resolved that issue in this settlement agreement, but I would need to take further look to find if that's the case or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jack, I think you may be.
Yes. We spend too much time on this kind of case. I look at our priority list. No one related to this. Yeah, it's so. But anyway, we rely on your professional advice. But I have 2 points from my reading and understanding. Mr. Jasper is entitled technically to build in the 3 buildings in the 3 parcels. And also last time you told us, even this time we reject his new revised application. The city will not get any legal damage or something like that. Could you please explain the detail?
I don't think I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Okay. So based on the letter you sent it to us and also the draft on the agenda, and I made a quotation here, Mr. Jasper is forever entitled to have the right build 3 buildings in 3 parcels.
He is.
Is that right?
He's entitled to have 3 homes built on these properties.
And also is forever.
For what? I'm sorry?
Forever.
forever.
Yeah.
Well, as long as he owns them, as long as the city has the properties zoned and general planned as residential, yes.
All right. But if he submits revised application, if the city will still not reject it, what is the consequence for ordinary city?
If you reject his revised applications, he has the right then to restart the lawsuit out of which this settlement agreement sprang. Because that lawsuit is still pending in the courts in Santa Rosa. It has not been dismissed. The lawsuit is still pending. He's able, but it's stopped. The court has agreed to allow the lawsuit to stop being prosecuted and defended by the lawyers and the parties, to allow Mr. Jasper an opportunity to process these revised applications before the council. If the council at the end of the day rejects his revised applications, he then is entitled to go back to the court in Santa Rosa and say, let's start this lawsuit again. It hasn't been dismissed. That will likely result in an appeal being filed by Mr. Jasper. There was one piece of the lawsuit that the judge did not dismiss. There's a claim that the city violated Mr. Jasper's due process rights because council members were allegedly being contacted and getting information outside of the hearing that resulted in the council denying the previous 3 home applications. So those claims would be brought back forward for further litigation. But the decision the council makes regarding the revised applications, they will never see the light of a courthouse. They will not be brought forward for litigation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the original, like for example, there was a lot pad with like almost 20,000 square feet. Like that's what comes back, not
Exactly.
the 11. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Jack, do you have anything else that you'd like to?
I'm afraid I couldn't fully understand. But anyway, I want to suggest, and please wait, spend more time, let us understand, and reply to Jasper's lawyer. Thank you.
So before we go to public comments, are there any other questions for council? From council or to staff? I see none. Oh, none? All right, at this point, I'm going to take it out to the public.
Hello, City Council and staff. Amy Harrington, 235 East Napa Street. I wanted to come and compliment staff on the work that they did in between the first hearing and today. I think the information you received from DUDEC was outstanding, and the amount of follow-up and the packet was so great today, and thank you very much for all of that. It brought to mind what I thought when I looked at the packet last week, which I think Bill Jasper and Ed Routhier are very aware of, which is that the environmental review of this project is this project. And so I think they knew precisely how important the selection of a consultant is, which is why they obviously tried to influence it. And I am so proud of the city for investigating, for doing the right thing, for making sure that we have an independent consultant. When we heard these projects originally, I'm trying to think of all of the environmental, the exact details which are escaping me now, but it was like tens of thousands of square feet of dirt being moved, and all of the water of the mountain being funneled into one tunnel that was going to shoot down the side of the mountain. And each of the projects, even though they were submitted together, were evaluated separately and not as one large project as they should have been. There were so many environmental problems, and so that really weren't addressed during the first hearing. And so I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of your hard work, and for making everything so public today. It was really helpful. And I think obviously this was hands down the largest issue that we dealt with, I think, in my entire time on the city council. And it's very clear that the applicants are going to hold your feet to the fire for as long as this project is before you, and requires so much diligence. And thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you. Ms. Harrington?
Art Randy, 131 4th Street East. the most directly affected neighbor of this, the lower house of this project, of the three. And I want to second everything Amy just said about the staff getting on top of the communications that Jasper had with Dudek. And to just point out that this isn't the first time we've been here. We've had previous experience with Mr. Jasper and his associates in this project who have attempted to twist or reinterpret the Hillside Ordinance, twist things to their benefit, and negotiate in ways that advantage them over the well-being of the city. It's not just our house, which happens to be next door. It's the hillside with the great arching driveway that he proposed to get to these two houses first up the hill. So therefore, the environmental review needs to be a thorough one, not an abbreviated one, and not one that is slanted toward an exclusion, which was the, I believe, the point by which he was emphasizing that in the redraft of the second RFP. We need to stay on top of this group of applicants, because at every point they will attempt to skew things in a way that they can make money out of what is part of the city's heritage. We need to stand up, and should not be merely a matter of cost of enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy.
Good evening, Sheila O'Neill. I'm here speaking to you as a private citizen of Sonoma. Thank you, staff. That was amazing work. I really appreciate that. I know how hard you guys work. I know how much pushback you get. I love your creative solutions, and I love that you're not pushovers. City Council, I have to thank you for shining a light on this project. Thank you for requesting copies of all the communication between the applicant, the city, and the consultants. And I ask you to please keep this project in daylight. Keep the process transparent. This project has a history of opaqueness, starting several years ago with some questionable deals on a lot line adjustment between this applicant and the city. In 2017, James Cribb, at the time, was the chair of the Planning Commission. He was accused of a Brown Act violation after several viewers of Channel 27 at home watched his private discussions with developer Bill Jasper during a Planning Commission break in the meeting. And then he allowed Jasper to address the Planning Commission for 20 minutes after he had dismissed all other attendees at that meeting. Shawkin Hill has always been loved and protected by Sonoma. Over 20 years ago, the citizens of Sonoma voted 83% in favor of protecting that hillside from the development of a hotel. When this project was once again threatening the hill, a passionate group of citizens formed to appeal this project to the City Council, including some of our great friends that we've since lost: Dick Peters, Karen Skoglund, Ron Chapman, Ted Elliott. And Mayor Agrimonti was part of that great decision when City Council voted to uphold the appeal and encourage the developer to come back with a project that fit Sonoma's development code. But rather than come back with a project that fit the code, the applicant partnered with a few dubious rental advocates and sued the city in Superior Court. They lost. The applicant wants to keep fighting in court and apparently has the funds to do so. This prompted Sonoma's legal counsel to suggest a settlement to stop the ongoing expense of fighting this developer, even though the city is winning. These discussions and negotiations happened in closed sessions. They should be public hearings. City Council has the ultimate authority to make the decision, but please do so in the public eye with community input. Bad things happen in dark places. Shine a light on this process, and if the projects are ever approved, remember Ronald Reagan: trust but verify. Once an application is approved, the developer must be monitored and held accountable. Whatever is built is going to outlast all of us. Thank you.
Are there any other people in the audience who would like to have a comment? At this point, I'll take it to Zoom. No one from Zoom. At this point, I am looking for, I think, council discussion. If you still think you want to have any more discussion for input and further direction. Or we can just move forward. Could we have a motion?
Yeah, do we need a motion or
So
seeking a sole source?
No, actually, here's my suggestion. My suggestion is, just to be clear with everyone, is you would make an odd motion that says you're making a motion not to adopt the resolution. And that just goes into the minutes. Staff, because of council's action not to adopt the resolution and that was our recommendation, we will move forward with the sole source agreement, and we will come back to you for approval of that agreement once, obviously, we've a negotiated agreement with the selected environmental firm.
So you're,
All right.
okay, so you're suggesting not to do a motion to?
A motion not to adopt, just so it's clear
Yes,
in the
yes.
minutes
Yeah.
that you're all in agreement.
Yeah.
So whoever would like to make that motion?
I want to make a motion. The city council not accept resolution to move forward, and until you provide more information about sole source environment consulting company seeking and the status.
Is that?
Okay. Can I make a slight suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just say you're going to make a motion not to adopt the resolution as presented, and with acknowledgement that staff is going to come back to you with a contract with an environmental firm to perform the work.
Yes, that is right.
So just deny,
Yes.
deny the resolution, or, yeah. I'll second that, and then if we can have a brief discussion.
And Bob? Okay.
So as you just said, the sole source contract will come back. In terms of addressing the sort of issues we've had that city staff have sort of highlighted in terms of the developer contacting firms and trying to sort of influence the process, does staff or does our city attorney have any suggestions on how we handle that moving forward to make sure this never happens again?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. We could have provisions in the agreement. We'll make specifically clear, before we even talk to them, we'll ask the base question. Have you had any contact from the applicant? And if you get any comments or contact from the applicant, you do not reply, you let us know. And in the agreement, when we have with them, we'll make that clear also.
Okay, thank you. Will, through this sole source concept, do we issue an RFP? Is that part of it, or do we? All right.
No, actually, your planning director and staff will reach out directly to environmental consultants, whether it's one or two. A lot just depends on who's actually willing and who has the time. And so that's what we're doing. We already tried the RFP for this time. We're actually just going to go directly to firms and talk to them.
Okay, and so to follow that up, obviously the whole reason why we're here was because there was a difference between RFP 1 and RFP 2, where RFP 1, per the planning director's analysis, thought an EIR was appropriate for this project. From what I understand, the developer is pushing through his contact with consultants what's called a categorical exemption. Will that still be part of the third sole source?
Yeah. Well, I think the planning director speak, but my suggestion would be, because we believe as being responsive, we would keep the scope of work for your second RFP. So that would be included in it, and then we would negotiate what the cost of everything would be, and that recommended firm, we would bring that contract back to the council for approval.
If I can just characterize the first RFP, it was not to go to an EIR, but it was to conduct an initial study, which would then perhaps result in a mitigated neg deck or an EIR.
I see.
And that was what the applicant was unwilling or unwanting to do. And then he approached consultants, we believe, to look at the option of expanding that to include a categorical exemption. So at this point, the city manager said, we'll actually give it, let them come to us with any one of those three options, if you will. And then we'll take that into consideration and then make a recommendation to your council.
And then I guess another question would be, considering it sounds like the applicant or the developer has reached out to many firms. Is that true? Sorry.
We're in the process of counting of those first 7 who he contacted. As to the 2 that they asked to be included in the second RFP, I don't believe we received any contact from them yet. MIG, and I believe it was First Carbon Solutions, yeah. Mike,
So I guess my question is, if all these firms have been contacted, and I could also see some firms not even wanting to get involved in this. I mean, what happens if we can't find someone to do this?
Well, there are a lot of consultants. Most of the ones that we've contacted are some are local, some are local but with statewide offices, and some are even nationwide. So we can certainly go a lot broader. Hopefully there are some that haven't been necessarily influenced. They may have been contacted. In the case, I believe, of a couple of them we've talked to, they were contacted but pushed back and said, sorry, we don't do this.
That's not appropriate. Right.
That is correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could someone remind me, I think I closed the public session? Zoom and, okay, thank you. So I believe you have made a motion. I have a second.
I have the more discussion, yeah.
Oh, all right.
And the,
That's why we're here.
so the, I want to, because even so the soil source, the company provided and the environment, suggestion, the report, also that is a recommendation. And our the city staff and the city council can reserve our the right and reject the result, or we have to go with them, or?
Yeah, I think as the planning director reported, the firm does the analysis. They'll make a recommendation to staff. Planning staff will make a recommendation to council, and the council can decide how to proceed. You'll have to maybe make sure you're basing it on some levels of findings of how you want to proceed, but it ultimately is the council's decision.
Okay, thank you. So in this way, remind me, right now, Jaspers have contact several or many these kind of environmental company. So now I'm wondering if we have our in-house, service or analysis, or maybe we can hire independent contractor come to the city and dedicate to this project. Maybe that would be more, the reliable or whatever, say that. Because right now we have suspicions for this kind of thing. We should consider.
I would say to do something like that at that level in-house would be very difficult without adding a lot of staff and time. However, I will say this. Let us go through the process, and based on what we come back to you with, then we'll see.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
And I would just add to that, we're sort of here because we did our initial environmental review in-house during the first round. And this was, in another era. And so I support the city staff contracting out.
So we have a motion and a second, and I would like to have roll call.
Well, I would also like to say something.
Oh my
I mean, I know
God,
we're
okay.
trying to speed it along here, but what I would like to say is I really want to appreciate and echo some of the comments of the public. I'd really want to appreciate all the hard work of staff between our last meeting and now. I think what we've discovered as a council is very eye-opening. I really appreciate all that hard work. As I said at the last meeting, this is a very important issue for the city. I think it's also very important for the city to defend our development code in general. I feel like we are in a situation where our developer has already signaled that he plans to, he's already sued us. Litigation is pending, and he's already signaled that he would want to appeal, etc. And obviously we are a small city with limited resources, and so this puts us in a difficult situation. But I also think, as difficult as that situation is, it would also be equally difficult to be in a situation where people didn't respect our development code. And so I think it's very important that we defend that development code. We are bound by the settlement agreement agreed to by the previous council, which, I understand why it was made. And I think we as a city and as a city council and our city attorney and city staff are trying to abide by that agreement from a good faith effort. And I would hope that all parties that sign that settlement agreement would also try to abide by the terms of that in good faith. And so I'm very pleased with the direction of this, and I really appreciate, again, all the hard work of city staff. And I think it's I don't think there's a more important issue than this issue right now in terms of when it comes to our development code and just supporting the integrity of it. And so I'm happy to support this tonight.
Yeah,
Bob?
I totally agree
Excuse me,
with.
Bob?
I
Sorry.
just would like to join in, and I wholeheartedly agree with Council Member Barnett's comments that he just made, that we have the obligation to do the best we can for this city to uphold the development code and what it intends. And so I appreciate all the work that staff and everyone has done to bring this out into the open and to make it visible to everybody. So thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I totally agree. I just copy.
Thank you.
And also, and to be compliant with the code is our goal. Simple. Compliance with the code.
Thank you. So, of course, I share all the comments here. I think, they're very wise. I think the community has been steadfast in their support for the council's role in this and our council. But here's something new. All this staff time is paying it. We're using taxpayers' dollars, money. It's just, no, we don't. Oh, that's right. I would love to say that because it's a tool, but thanks anyway. So I just, it's a lot of time. It's taking us away from other things that we could be working on. So I'm really sorry this is continuing. I'm not going to be around forever. I could, whatever. But, it's up to everybody to keep working on this because I think we're a small city. And it's very sad that we're in this kind of a angst, and I feel sorry for all of us. At this point, I think we had a motion and a second. And anyone else have a comment? No one. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Now on to 6.2, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a change in the day of the city council's regular meeting, city manager and city clerk. Recommendation. And I'm now turning it over to our city manager.
I believe your city clerk will make the presentation.
Okay, then I'll change what it says here. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, the city's council meetings are set by resolution as needed per your municipal code. Each year, the council adopts an annual meeting calendar, which the council did in December of 2020 for 2021. At your retreat on September 10th, the council expressed an interest in changing that meeting date to the first and third, from the first and third Mondays to the first and third Wednesdays. At the time, there was some confusion about the city attorney's availability. And so after a further consultation with him, it was realized that he's actually committed to the city of Novato on the first and third Wednesdays and to the city of Martinez in the second and fourth Tuesdays. So At this time, we would ask that the council review the calendar and direct staff as to how you would like to proceed. And that concludes my very short presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council to staff regarding this? Seeing none. And at this point, I'd like to take it to public comments from people here in the audience. I see no one rise. I'll take it out to Zoom for any comments. None? At this point, then we'll close the public comments section. Do you have any questions for staff? No one? I think you've cleared it up. So, council discussion, what's your pleasure?
Well, if I may go, Madam Mayor.
Sure, absolutely.
I still would strongly encourage us to go to the first and third Wednesdays if it's possible for the city attorney to work out some kind of an arrangement that somebody else from the office can support the city council. But it just seems that the other proposed dates have lots of their own problems as well, and I think that one of the reasons we homed in on Wednesdays was that gives us a little better time between presentation of all the staff reports and the actual meeting, and so I would not like to see us deviate from that first and third Wednesday if at all possible.
Thank you. Council, Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, I mean, I generally support exactly what Councilmember Felder said. For example, the second and fourth Wednesdays, we have a CSEC meeting and SVCAC. Is SVCAC in this room? Back, yeah, okay.
Currently, I believe they're still hybrid, but yes, they are virtual, but yes, they are in this room.
And then obviously the first and third Tuesday we have design, so I do like the idea of Wednesday, and historically that's how it always used to be.
And Jack?
I have no comments, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't have any opinion, however, I do like the day Wednesday for us. I think it's more convenient for what we do. Yeah, sure.
To the city attorney, is it possible for someone else from your office to be able to support the city council if we choose those dates?
I think so. I'll have to find out, but I think so. We might have a situation where I could split those nights with some other attorney. So I'd be with it's actually Martinez that has the meetings on the first and third Wednesday. So I could be there one of those nights, and then the other night I could be here in Sonoma and have somebody else in the firm taking my place in the interim, both in Martinez as well as here. And that will probably work out fairly well. As you know, my ultimate goal and hope is that basically at the end of next year, I am hoping to turn over the reins of this position with your consent to somebody else in my firm who's also city attorney. And I'm doing that with all the cities I represent. So that it would be a good transition to have the person who I think would be a very good candidate for your city attorney from our firm, beginning to spend time with you. So you get used, listen to him. It's a man. His name is David Ruderman, and he's been helping staff for the last 5 or 6 months. Very, very fine lawyer. So I think that would be a good thing. We can be a good transition.
Well, thank you.
That makes sense.
With those comments, I appreciate you sharing that, and it sounds like we could make it work.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. So at this point, we have no other questions. So I would say roll call, please. Motion?
Well, no, but we'll be bringing a resolution back at the next meeting memorializing
All
this.
right, well, thank you. That was easy.
Maybe one question would be, when would you actually like to make the change? Like November? Your first meeting in November? That would give the city attorney some time to talk to David, to work out see the schedule, and maybe there could be a transition when they're both here for one meeting. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good for me.
It's good for me. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so we will come back with a resolution at your next meeting, but the switch over wouldn't start until your first meeting in November.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're moving on to 6.3. Introduction of the ordinance amending section 2.01.020 of the Sonoma Municipal Code to update salaries for members of the city council, city clerk. All right, announce the item, turn over to the city clerk.
So in 2007 is when the council adopted Ordinance 06207, which actually enacted the salary that the council is still currently receiving of $300 a month. That salary is set by government code based on the city's population. And that same code allows for an increase by ordinance on an annual basis, and it can be no more than 5% of the salary at the time the ordinance was enacted. So since that time, again, you have not made any changes since the ordinance was done in 2007. And if we were to bring the proposed ordinance brings the council current and up to the current amount, which was $495. And it's thought that the increase would have got, because it goes into effect the next regular election or the next election after the enactment. So staff feel strongly that the was not done until 2008. So that's what the proposed increase is based on. It was a proposed increase for 13 years of 5% per year, or 195 on top of the 300. Currently, staff has it proposed that this would go into effect beginning January 22, since you do have a special election in November. And the successful candidate would be seated in December. That is the council can choose to change that date if they so choose, or proceed how you would like. I did do a quick survey after preparing the staff report on the different cities in Napa County or in Sonoma County, and a few of them have responded, but not all of them. It's important to remember that because it is based on population and whether they have enacted a change or not, there can be difference. The city of Windsor responded. They get $300 per month, but then they also get $85 per city council meeting. The city of Cloverdale is $550. Sebastopol is still at $300. Cotati is at $300. And Healdsburg, in their municipal code, they didn't respond, but I looked at their municipal code, and it does say that the salaries are $150, but this was enacted back in 1981, and it says that they will be, the code says that it will be updated as allowed in the government code. So I couldn't confirm whether they're still at 150 or not, but that's just a little bit of a comparison for you of what the other cities that are fairly close or in range with us are doing. And that concludes my comments. This is the introduction of the ordinance. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so 495. So explain that. That's from the 300 to 495?
Yes, so the way that, because this ordinance was enacted in 2007, it couldn't take place until 2008, until after the election of 2008. So we calculated beginning in 2008, using the 5% per year. It doesn't get compounded. There was an AG, Attorney General opinion that says that it can't be, or it's not compounded. And so you base it on the 5% of 300 and multiply that times the 13 years, which is basically $15 a year, and it brings us up to the 495, so it's an additional 195.
Jack?
Yeah. That is right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But in reality, there should be, the compounding. If no compounding, just the straight number, just like you said, $15 per each year doesn't make sense because inflation, is growing. And of course, this $15 already with the consideration of inflation, but the calculation should be, compounding. That is makes sense, unless the code and mention, we using straight rate instead of compounding rate.
Is anyone else?
So just to confirm, Healdsburg is 150, and I've Googled that. It appears that's what it is.
Their municipal code says that. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to confirm that they haven't made a
But
change.
They get something every meeting? Is that the city?
Oh, 85.
That's Windsor.
Yeah.
So do you want me to run through them again, Councilmember Barnett?
No, it's okay. Or you don't have to do Windsor. I was just I thought it was Healdsburg.
Healdsburg is 150, and then their code, I couldn't confirm that they haven't made a change, that their code hasn't been
But,
updated.
and it's not 85 a meeting? I thought you
No,
said.
Windsor is 300 plus 85 per council meeting
Okay.
in addition.
Okay, so Healdsburg's 150, Cloverdale's 550,
Yes,
Sebastopol's 300, Cotati's 300.
correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's a month, obviously. Yeah.
I see in the document that the city attorney forwarded to us that has an opinion from the Office of the Attorney General that they discourage, if not, they discourage compounding. So I guess I don't know if they don't actually exclude it. You can't do it, but it sounds like they don't encourage it at any rate. So I would think that we ought to adhere to that rule if that's what the Attorney General is providing.
And just to make a clarification, these are max. This is the max, the limit, right?
Correct.
Like, so for a city of our size, it starts at 300, and then you can raise it 5% a year through council action ordinance. But that would be the max. Like, for example, Healdsburg is 150, so they've decided not to do the max. Okay.
And also, I have idea that increasing the salary for this volunteer work in some way could encourage more people participate in the local and the city volunteer work, especially for young people. They are working hard, but they are also interested in the local government work. So if we can do a little bit better, and it's kind of a support for the young people. That is, of course, we should be based on regulation, based on the law.
So could I have something from the city manager? So I'm hearing the numbers. I understand. I read this a few times. First of all, I'd like to tell you, this is like the newest thing to even discuss. I've discussed this for years in this city, and I was always saying, no, we can't do it. Impossible. So I appreciate you're even thinking about it and considering it. Obviously, this is not going to put me, I'm not going to be able to have my own jet with this money, but I think it's important that it comes down to the issue of respect, which I think is something that's somewhat lacking at certain times here in the city. And so I appreciate even this discussion. And so what number are we talking about at this point, Mr. Toy?
Yeah, I think right now we're saying it could be a max of $495. Right now we're suggesting it would take effect January 1, 2022. So really your options to you are, one is if you want to do this, two would be what the amount would be, and then three, what would be the date? Because you could say January 1, 2023, which would be after the next regular election.
Yeah, so if I may I go? Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And with respect, I actually was very surprised to see this on the agenda. As you've been saying for years, we can't talk. I mean, I think perhaps there's a...
It's like you get slapped or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm telling you. Sorry, everybody, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Although maybe there's a reason for that, because we are talking about, it's a very, for lack of a better term, it's an awkward discussion. We're basically,
Well, it's never been awkward for me. I know how to ask for a raise.
well, clearly, but this is the public treasury, and, to Vice Mayor Ding's point, I appreciate your comment about perhaps this will encourage more people to run for city council, but I'm not totally persuaded by that, in the sense that, an extra $195 a month is probably not going to make the difference for somebody that may or may not, have financial considerations. And so, so that's the first point. My second point is I strongly oppose voting on raising our salary or stipend or whatever you want to call it, and having it apply to people that voted on it before an election. And so, for example, I just don't think it's appropriate. It's almost unseemly to vote yourself a raise before an election. And so, there are 3 seats up here that are up in 2022, and there are 2 that are up in 2024. Well, actually 1 up in November of 2021. And so, if the council does want to do this, which I don't know if we do, I would support staggering it where the increase occurred after the seat was contested. For example, the mayor's seat, my seat, and Councilman Felder's seat is up in November of 2022. And so for those seats, I would not, if the council does want to do this at all, I wouldn't support, I would encourage, if this is going to happen, the increase to happen in December or January of 2023. And then for Vice Mayor Ding's seat, that wouldn't go into effect until 2025. And then I think it would probably be appropriate for the other seat to start immediately, because there's going to be an election in November.
Well, I like that.
I guess we're into comments rather than questions. I was.
Yes, apparently.
But I certainly endorse what Councilman Barnett said. I feel very uncomfortable about voting myself a raise, and I would have. I certainly would go for the idea of waiting until the seat is contested. So the next general election in 2022, which would make it. Start in January of 2023. I could support that, since I won't be here and I won't have to vote myself that raise.
And then there's the other question, Sebastopol's 300, Catati's 300, we're very similar to those. Healdsburg's smaller, 150. I mean, do we want to do the max, or is 300 appropriate?
Jack?
Yeah, I appreciate Council Barnett's comments, and Bob also agree with that. But from the big picture, I support. Yeah, I encourage you and join this, and then let it happen. We are in a volunteer work. You are all in a quality and a professional, and using your experience and your knowledge and the time cannot be the match it. What are you got in a compensation? That is something like the symbolic compensation. So the minor the idea is let it people know this is also is respected in the job, and the young people also is ready to participate.
Okay, so I appreciate before I add my comments. I came into this city, I think I ran, 2014 or something. And here's the thing that's sort of surprised me. There's no respect for this body here. I had to fight for this room to be called City Council Chambers. Everybody was mad because it was the community room. This is where government happens. And that's one of the things I'm really adamant about. And I think it's important. The raise is not, I don't need this. when I first got elected years ago, I gave my whole salary to charity, which I bet I do it anyway, the money that I make here. But I think it's important that somehow people need to understand we're just ordinary people. Guess what? Doing extraordinary things, talking about $1 million projects. I'm not saying that equates into the amount of money that we should make, but I'm just saying I feel it's my role to bring respect to this body. And I have not seen that for some time. And people are so wonderful. The Sonoma people are wonderful, but I'm ignored sometimes in certain situations. And this is just one more way that I think I would like respect for myself and respect for this body. It was pretty funny when I tried to say council chambers. People are angry. This is a community building. Well, this is where business is done. And I even did a little survey. There's only one other place in this county that doesn't have a council chambers, and that's Sebastopol, because I think they use the teen center. So I really am proud that we were able to do that, and this is part of the things that we should be looking at for this council. So I appreciate everything you have all said, and at this point, I guess what are you hearing, Mr. Toy?
I think what I'm hearing is the majority of you would like it to be phased in, although it's not clear to me if the amount is what is in agreement. But if the amount of $495 is agreed, then how it would work in a phase-in would be the seat that's up for this November, whoever gets elected, that salary would take effect January 1, 2022. After your regular election in 2022, whoever's elected, the new salaries for those 3 seats would take effect in January 1, 2023. And then for your regular election in 2024, whoever's up then, whatever seat that hadn't received an increase yet, when that seat is filled, that salary would take effect January 1, 2025. I think that's what I heard from the council. If that's correct with the majority of you, then what we would do is you wouldn't take any action tonight. You would give us that direction, and we'll come back to you with an ordinance that tries to reflect just what I said.
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Well, I don't support that. Can we get back to the respect issue?
Yes.
Why don't you feel respected?
Here in this.
Because I've never found that. I feel our staff respects us. I think it's really important that we conduct ourselves in a way that, gets respect. But I've never seen
Well,
that.
that's something we probably should talk about in a retreat, not here.
Well, I mean, you brought it up.
Well, Kelso, I'm not going to respond.
Okay.
Let's see. So what's the pleasure then? You've heard what we've said.
Yeah,
Should I get a motion?
Well, I think, yeah, it's not.
I would actually like to make a motion. I'm actually going to move that we deny this. I think $300 is appropriate. I think that's right in line with Sebastopol and Katati. I assume council members in Sebastopol and Katati are respected. I assume people in Healdsburg are respected at $150, and I think that's totally appropriate for the city of Sonoma.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Councilmember Felder,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Dean,
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
No.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-1.
Well, I guess where are we now? Council members' reports and comments?
Didn't we take?
Oh, I don't think we did.
Oh, you didn't take public comment.
Nope, sorry.
Okay, well, I think you need to take public comment. And then
So I'd like to open this up for public comment.
Mayor Agrimonti, council members, I respect all of you, believe me. I just was thinking, you're getting $495 a month. And I'm going to call it a stipend. It's not, I don't think it's a salary, it's a stipend. But I think you're getting really close to 1 billable hour for a Shocking Hill lawyer. Congratulations. That really went over big. Kidding aside, my father was the city manager for many, many years in Santa Paula, California, which is in Southern California. And because of his position, I could see all the things that went on behind the curtain, if you will. And I saw what the city council members were faced with all the time. The public doesn't seem to understand what goes on behind this curtain. There's the never-ending reports. There is the proposals. There is reading letters. The researching this, researching that. There are community meetings. There are functions you have to go to even though you are exhausted or you don't even want to go because you want to play ball with your kid. It cuts into your family time. And the list goes on and on. And, oh, by the way, you have a lot of difficult people who were not very respectful that you have to deal with. As you know, we don't always agree. I have said many times, I send you emails, I send you mock-ups of Broadway and so forth. You've always been very respectful to me. And you've always listened to my presentations. You have given me your time. And this is our form of government, thankfully. Tonight, I want to personally thank each one of you for your dedicated community service to the city of Sonoma and to the greater Sonoma Valley. And that includes the staff people as well. I would agree this is not a very large increase. And again, it's a stipend. You didn't run for these positions for any kind of monetary gain. And it was interesting to see what the council was debating. I remember my father every year. Am I out of time already? Oh. Sorry. Thank you so much for your dedication.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Now, we are talking about the wage increase,
Yes.
right? You guys do an amazing job. And I know that it would probably work out to $1 an hour, maybe less. So whatever you decide, I'll support, but I wanted to say that you and the staff are great.
Thank you, Ms. Cullinan. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no one rise. Zoom? No one. So, all right. Well, it looks as if we have...
Sorry to interrupt. Just a matter of clarification for us on the action you just took. What that means is we're not coming back to the council with any salary
You're absolutely
proposal increases. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the dialogue here. I think it's really important for us all to know and hear. Are there any council member reports and comments? Seeing none.
My only thing would be, I notice it's not quite there, but under the manager's report, I don't know if there's any future agenda items that the council wants to let the manager know and staff know about? No? Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on the council goals that we passed earlier in the meeting, you're going to be creating a work plan for those, correct?
Yes.
Do those come back before the council
Yes.
as like a future item? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it will. Work plan will come back to the council for approval.
Great, thank you.
Bob?
I have a question too. We left the ad hoc committee assignments in the lurch to come back to us. Is that going to come back soon?
Yes, that'll actually come back to you next month.
Thank you.
And Sir, the attorney, any comments? Thank you.